Welcome, everybody, to this spoiler review for House of the Dragon Episode 5 here from the
Geek
Buddies!
Hey!
What's up, everybody? We're back again to talk about House of the Dragon here. Episode 5, We Light the Way. Certainly a lot of meaning in those 4 words as we saw throughout the episode here. A lot happening. Another wedding episode where sadly someone has passed during the wedding. Not quite the red wedding, but you might want to call it the green wedding, maybe. So we shall see. We're going to talk about all the things that happened here in this episode. And this is the last episode we get with the 2 younger actresses playing Alicent and Rhaenyra. We're going to make the time jump. Certainly, we've seen some of the makeup. If you've seen the preview for episode 6, my man Patty Considine is not aging well as Viserys. So we're going to see the time jumps as we go into episode 6. But we certainly saw some time jumps here for some of the younger Valyrian children there in this episode as well. So much to talk about. Battle lines being drawn in the House of the Dragon Civil War that's going to happen, certainly. And those of you who've read the books, you know this is all happening. But there were some changes. So we're going to get into all of that here as we talk about it. Let's introduce ourselves first. I'm the Outlaw John Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on the Geek Buddies. Mike?
I am Michael Vogel. I'm a writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies.
Shan?
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm an animation writer and a television actor, and it's currently cloudy where I am, so perpetually the sun comes out and it's blinding me. So if I completely wash out, I apologize, and I hope that some cloud cover will come and make the lighting a little more favorable.
Maybe as bright as that sun was on the beach when Rhaenyra was walking there with her attendant, so to speak. So we will see. But also big shout out to Carbon Health, carbonhealth.com. They're an incredible healthcare company that takes care of you, creating personal specialized healthcare plans for you. Whatever you're going through, they'll create specialized plans for you to help you get back into tip-top shape and help you get back into a healthy place in your life as well. They offer virtual care, in-person care. They've got an app you can download for any questions or concerns you have on the go, healthcare-wise, and you can go and look at their healthcare website, carbonhealth.com, and get yourself set up with an appointment either virtually or in person. They got 110-plus locations nationwide, 80-plus locations alone in California. So go get taken care of today over there at carbonhealth.com and tell them the Geek Buddies sent you for sure.
If you got COVID, they'll help you. If you got monkeypox, they'll help you. And if you're going to a wedding in Westeros, they will help you. They cover all manner of medical emergencies.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's get into this episode here. As I already mentioned, so much of what happens in this episode, or what happened rather in this episode, as we make the turn into the back half of the first season of House of the Dragon. This thing is averaging 29 million viewers per episode now. It's up 3% this previous episode that we're about to talk about than last week. So certainly building, the interest is building yet again. People are having more and more faith that this vibes with them like the best of Game of Thrones. So that's a great thing. I certainly enjoyed this episode. Mike, take it away. What do you think overall of episode 5? We light the way here on House of the Dragon.
I mean, it brought the heat. It just gets better and better. I'm just having so much fun. It is just total soap opera. I've talked to a couple friends of ours who they don't love it as much as Game of Thrones because Game of Thrones was so much more widespread. It was really about the totality of Westeros. You got to know all the different families and all of the machinations between them and the North and the South and this prophecy and what was happening, across the sea. And this is much more focused on just this dynasty and how they're hanging on. And so, it's not quite the same as Game of Thrones, but I think for my money, it's delivering what I love. It's delivering this drama. It's delivering these really interesting characters that are all butting up against each other. And I mean, this episode just felt like it was going at warp speed, but in a really positive way. I think I saw this on the internet, a meme that I really liked. They were like, I love that House of the Dragon is doing the opposite of Game of Thrones expectations. Usually with Game of Thrones, you're like, who's going to die in this episode? But with House of the Dragon, it's like, how long is Viserys holding on? How long is he going to make it? Because I was sure he was going down in this episode. I was like, this man is not making it out of episode 5. This is it for him. He is done. And then you see the trailer for coming up, and I'm like, man, This guy looked like he was dead in episode 2. He is still holding on somehow.
He doesn't
but yeah,
need
I mean,
your chair. He don't need your rocking chair. He's still walking around. I don't care how sick he is.
I really love how Game of Thrones as a whole, like, they've set up this wedding expectation. Like, we knew there was a wedding in this episode. Yeah. All of us are like, well, shit's gonna go down. And then they toyed with us for the entire wedding. Like, everybody is staring at everybody, and there was so much going on that I was like, if nothing happens, that's going to be the biggest fuck you to all of us, but I don't know which direction any of this is coming from. And then when it happened, it still fucking shocked me, even though I was expecting something to happen. So a lot of specifics going on with like absolutely everybody. Like Alicent really stepped up in this episode. Yeah. Rhaenyra had a lot going on. Poor Ser Cristen, like Corlys, like gay love in Westeros. Like literally, there was just a ton happening with everybody.
I don't know.
So I'm with you. I'm with you, John.
Yeah, I mean, get over it, guy. But yeah, all right, fair enough.
100%. Like, I'm not saying the guy's right, but there's a lot going on with everybody.
There is a lot going on for sure. We're gonna get into it, all of it. Shannon, overall thoughts as you look at episode 5 now, having a couple of days removed from seeing it. What's your thoughts on episode 5?
So the whole soap opera angle, which I think we were all sort of subconsciously aware of it.
Yeah.
Ever since our dear friend Michael Vogel so eloquently and forcefully pronounced it last week that this is just a giant soap opera, the whole time I'm watching it, I'm like, that's pretty.
Yeah.
There's better actors, there's better writing, and some beautiful establishing shots, but yep, this is one big soap. Yeah. And I enjoyed the hell out of it. I mean, it's it is crazy to see how much time is passing with each episode. But I can't wait to talk about Ser Cristen, because I guess it was last week when they hooked up. It was just like, well, he talked about having an adventurous life beforehand. He wasn't a virgin. I'm like, that dude was a virgin, because you don't respond like that. That's what you do when your first gets taken from you.
As I told people last week, people were like, no, he had an adventurous life. Our commenters were like, no, man. No, that means he had sex all over the place. You guys are insane. Man. That is not. He took a vow. He was not having adventure. He was like messing around with stuff.
That guy had sex one time and it fucked him up. Like that is the end of that story.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm enjoying it from top to bottom. I am so worried about poor Paddy Considine that man is literally rotting from the inside. And you talk about how the Iron Throne rejects people that's not supposed to sit on it. I mean, I don't know what other evidence you need that he was not supposed to be the king. But again, the characters are so intriguing, and even though we were so quick to jump on Otto as like, oh, you mother effort, now I'm like, Otto was right. Otto may have been right. Like he wasn't fully altruistic, but he was probably correct at this point. So I'm so excited to talk about this episode. Like this was a blast to watch.
I think this is the thing about Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon by extension, is that everyone has their sliding scale of morality depending on the situation, and no one wants to really go, this is a pretty fucked up place and we need to do some fucked up things to survive, because everybody's caught up in where there's tradition and nobility and grace, these lies. And that's why it's a great mirror to our own society as we see people succeed who are pretty terrible people in all kinds of fields. And the good ones are the ones that stand out, and then we find out shit about them later. We're like, God damn it. So it's just life in this, as you're watching here in Westeros, it's not so different from our own lives. And here's the secret key, and I think Shannon, echoing what Michael said last week, all the great shows are secretly soap operas, when you break them all down. Sopranos was a soap opera. The Wire is a soap opera. Fucking Breaking Bad was a soap opera. All the WWE shit lives on soap opera content. So it is all soap opera. No matter how you dress it up and throw some dragons on and get some great costumes and put some great music in it, it's all fucking soap, because it's all about personal interactions and the shifting and sliding scale of morality depending on how dangerous the situation is or how desperate you are to survive it, and that thing. So that's what's fun to watch. Mike, you were going to say something?
I think what echoing something you just said, what's really great about the show is everybody, with the exception of Daemon, everybody thinks they're doing the right thing.
Right.
Now, they might not be, and their information or their perspective might be skewed, but everyone, kind of to Shannon's point about Otto, and that scene with him and Alicent at the beginning, like, everyone thinks that they are doing what is right, not just for them, but for the realm, to a degree. Like I said, Daemon's the outlier. I've been listening to, I don't know if you guys have heard about this. Have you heard about this Game of Thrones Season 8 Redux?
No. What is that?
So a bunch of writers got together, and they make it very clear that it is not for profit, so that they don't get sued. It is straight up fan fiction. But there's a podcast out right now called the Game of Thrones Season 8 Redux, where they just fixed Season 8.
Wow.
It is. It's 10 episodes. Each episode is an episode of Game of Thrones. Really great actors and voice cast. And it's Season 8. And like, the only reason I bring it up, aside from the fact that if you're listening to the House of Dragon review that we're doing, you probably are a Game of Thrones fan and you should go check it out. But I bring it up because one of the things that has become, I'm about 3 episodes in, and one of the things that is very apparent is that every character, Daenerys, Tyrion, Sansa, Jon, like everyone, Varys, they are all acting in this podcast the way that they should act. Like, there's not a lot of well, we don't want these characters to know this thing, and we're gonna save this for this episode. It's very writery stuff where you sort of force characters to act against type to get to where you want to go. This Season 8 Redux has all of the characters just like, oh yeah, that is exactly what that character would do. And with this episode of House of the Dragon, it very much felt like that to me. Like, Alicent is a great example. Like, Otto saying to her straight up, look, you don't get to choose. You have your son and you have your friend, and one of them is going to be king. And you can either choose to be on your friend's side or you can choose to be on your son's side, but but those are your choices. It's one or the other. Make a choice. And like, as much as I do think Otto is self-serving in that to a degree, he's also not wrong. And Alicent makes a choice. So I do just find this, it's soap opera, but it's good soap opera, because thus far, every single character, what they do, even when it's extreme, like our boy Ser Cristen, you're like, I understand why you did that, and it makes sense. So even though it is totally fucked up and the drama is off the chain, nothing so far is like, well, that seems really out of character. You really forced that to have that crazy moment. Like, I'm on this ride because I believe every single person. Yeah,
fair point. Fair point. Well, let's take a quick break and we'll jump into our first storyline here right after this.
Okay, you guys all know that Shannon, before this thing, was like, I need some Game of Thrones music, and he went through and listened to a bunch of things so that he wouldn't just go bum bum ba-da-dum bum ba-da-bum bum.
Even Leslie Jones commented about that on her Instagram. Get your own song. I respect Leslie. It was great. It's hilarious because she's right. Because she's damn right. All right, let's get into the main storyline here, and certainly this entire episode. Of course, there were tangential storylines happening, but this entire episode really was about King Viserys setting up what had been kind of teased at the end of the last episode, this idea of Rhaenyra finally settling down. You know, that tea got delivered by the maester, which Alicent brings up, or it gets brought up to her, it gets revealed to her in this episode as well. But we see that she has made this agreement that she is going to get married. She's finally going to get married. They're going to pair. Viserys visits Corlys's kingdom there with Rhaenys, and he asks to pair his daughter with Laenor, their young son Laenor. They've all jumped 5 years. Laena looks fantastic. Not when we saw her last time as a 12-year-old walking there talking about dragon riders with the king, which was super uncomfortable. Now we've got ourselves a little bit older, and we see what she gets into later on in the episode. But this is the basic storyline of this episode. It is the marriage here that is happening, the pairing them up. Ser Cristen is on the ship here with Viserys and Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra has the conversation with Laenor where she basically knows, I know you're gay, I'm straight, we'll do what we need to do and let's go our separate ways. We've got Corlys and Rhaenys saying, hey, we want to figure this out in terms of the succession. We want to be able
Corlys went for it.
Was that, yeah, our kid.
He just went for it. He's like, so what's the last name gonna be? And I was like, oh.
I love that. He's like, well, and because the king came to them, they have a little bit of power or leverage here in the situation. And so they use it to find out. So we find out the kids are going to be Valerian until their kids come to the throne. Then when they come to the throne, they're Targaryens and they'll rule for 100 years and all of that. So a compromise is reached. This is all set up. We see that Laenor has a lover that is Ser Joffrey, who is also his protector. And we see Criston try to pitch Rhaenyra with the idea of, let's just toss it all behind and go for love and go grab a bushel of apples and hang out in all these other places and be safe. And of course, Rhaenyra is like, nah, son. The crown is tough and I may bitch about it, but I like not being infamous and being a nobody. So we see all of this, and it leads, of course, to the wedding, and we'll get to that. So just this beginning section here, gentlemen, we do get the Alicent thing with Hightower, as you mentioned, Michael, that is a kind of moving of the machinations. She finds out about the tea, so she certainly got questions about whether Rhaenyra has been lying to her, which she did. And so we're seeing things happening and the wedding now coming through. So overall, Mike, talk about this storyline and everything that happened with everybody moving around in the pieces of this one.
I mean, again, I love all of the political side of this. Like, I love the soap opera, the romance, this and that, but like the political side, like, first of all, once again, they have just gone out of their way to make King Viserys the lamest king ever. Like, the man is seasick. He can't, like, he's puking over the side of a boat. He gets there, like, they're not even out there. Like, they also go out of their way to show, like, both Corlys, Rhaenys to a lesser degree, but Corlys is like pride. Like, yeah. Doesn't wait for him outside. Like, Viserys walks up, there's like nobody there. Lenore's like just kind of like fighting with his boyfriend. And like, it just, the disrespect, the lack of, and also the fact that like Viserys just has to put up with it. Like, he's kind of like, look, they have the upper hand. I just want to get this over with. He can barely get through the conversation with them without being like, I gotta go lie down. Like, the whole thing just makes him look so just pitiful, like just lame. But they get through it. They make the whole concession. Corlys, like, I mean, they do a great job with him because in the beginning couple episodes, like, he really was kind of like Otto shat on him. The king kind of ignored him. And he was kind of shoved to the side and you felt bad for him. But then you get here and you're like, you are kind of a dick. Like, you are kind of like, and you're doing the right thing. Like, yeah, if you know, yeah, you want to get your family on the throne, but like, come on, dude, you really think that's going to happen? And I think the scene with him and Rhaenys was really interesting. She was like, dude, let it go. I let this go years ago. And he's clearly not there. But you get that. And then I just thought the scene with Rhaenyra and Laenor was really wonderful. Like, you had these two kids who were really progressive. I mean, they'd be progressive today, let alone in Westeros. But to your point, her being like, look, I know who you really like. We've been friends a long time. Like, I know what your deal is. I have my things that I want to do. Let's have an open relationship. Like, that was what that was. You're like, all right, well, okay, Westeros' first open relationship. I mean, I guess most of the marriages in Westeros technically are open, but I don't think they're that agreed upon on the nose. So I thought all of that really, really played well. And like I said earlier, that scene with Alicent was really important because what Alicent does, and what I think Alicent is going to continue to do for the rest of the season, there's kind of two sides to it. There's the betrayal of a friend. You know, and I think, you know, you could argue that betrayal either way in that friendship, given that she married Viserys. But I think that you have this character who sort of feels betrayed by her friend, and at the same time has a son who has a claim. And so I think that she's in a really, really interesting position. So setting up all of these different pieces, and then poor Ser Cristen. I mean, he stood up there and was like, let's go have this and like, you're just sitting there and you're like, you really thought,
bro,
that she's gonna take the throne, and you think she's like, let's just go sail around the world and look at spice? Like, I was like, buddy, you really are a virgin. There was no way he was gonna go for that. And like, I wasn't sure where they were gonna take him. Like, I kind of last week kind of felt like they were gonna go in I can never see you again. I have to like hold on to whatever honor I have left. But they really went the opposite way. He really just, he went for it and he got shut down hard. So it was, I mean, all of this, all of the political machinations and all the things that are going on were just teeing everybody up. I mean, the great thing about this episode, and I know we'll get to it when we get there, but all of these conversations, every single piece of this is just putting a piece somewhere on the chessboard so that when we get to that wedding, everything crashes down at the same time. Like the scene with Otto talking to Alicent and being like, you got to think about this. Rhaenyra being like, hey, Laenor, we can both have our boyfriends on the side. It'll be great. Ser Cristen being like, let's run away. I'm in love with you. Viserys, Corlys, like everywhere. That's what allowed them to do this wedding scene where you literally didn't know where the drama was going to happen because there was so much going on.
Yeah. Shannon, fascinating stuff with the political machinations. What did you think about the moves that were being pulled by everybody in this? And Corlys saying, taking it upon himself, Rhaenys's embarrassment. She's saying she got past it. She's cool with it. But, sometimes men's ego, when it comes to the woman they love, ask Will Smith, it can overtake them at times and they can make mistakes or they can hold on to stuff. He even threw in by any means necessary, which is an interesting anachronistic Malcolm X reference in that moment, which I thought was fascinating as well. But him wanting to establish himself a little bit further in this situation, remember, because the king rejected his daughter when she was 12. He's now finding that he's got a little more position, a little more power. And they even mentioned that the king came to him. Came to them rather, and what that means and all of that. So, and even the king like greeting Rhaenys with the dirty handkerchief, which was terrible, but all of that. So you saw the movements and the power shift dynamics throughout this whole thing. What did you think about this storyline? Before we get to the wedding, what did you think of this whole storyline here as they were setting it up in this first part of the show?
Again, Vogel used the perfect term, and that he's just, Viserys is just kind of pitiful. Like this is someone that is playing with a hand of cards that they were never supposed to be dealt. Like this guy, he was supposed to be like third or fourth or fifth in line. He was going to live his days out on some castle, some estate way off in the country. He was never meant to play the Game of Thrones. And so when you see him just vomiting on the side, even like Lord Lionel, his new hand, who it seems like right now, it seems like I'm like, okay, Lord Lionel, you seem like you might be an okay guy. I'm sure, we got 5 episodes left. I'm sure some shitty stuff will come out.
Oh, he's cool. It's his sons that's the issue, which we'll get into after your
but they get that from like right now. He seems okay, but I'm like, you get that from someplace. As they show up at Driftwood at the castle, and as you guys already said, just the lack of respect, the fact that no one is there waiting for him. It doesn't even look like they've taken a broom out and sweep the dead leaves. Like it is just, it looks a little desolate. When Lady Lena says like, oh, my father just got back from his long journey. He hastened to whatever, like the throne room. When they walk in, he didn't hasten anywhere. That dude has been sitting, waiting. Like, all right, somebody tell me when he's here. All right, everybody, just give me an update. How close is he? But what's really interesting about Corlys is, granted, we don't know him prior to 10 years after, however many years after Viserys became king. But it seems like his grudge started from a good place. Like he was defending his wife's honor. Like my wife was supposed to have this, and looking at how everything has played out, she would have been the right choice. Now it's become personal. When Rhaenys is saying like, hey, I've made my peace with this, you got to get past it. It's just so fascinating. As you said, John, it's the ego of men that we have a really difficult time letting stuff go. And like the fact that the king didn't want to marry his 12-year-old daughter, like it's just, to him, it's personal slight after personal slight. So now that he is in that pole position, he's like, all right, I'm gonna turn the screws a little bit here. And then the conversation between Corlys and Rhaenys about they know what Laenor is like Rhaenys very much is just kind of like, he's not gonna be happy here, and not only is he not gonna be happy, you have put our child in danger. I mean, it's so fascinating. But with Viserys finally getting Rhaenyra kind of married off, and then thinking like, okay, that's it. And as he comes back to the castle and immediately collapses, and you see he's having that moment, like he's having a real issue with his mortality at that point, when he's asking Lord Lionel, what kind of king are they going to say I was? He's like, I'm not a conqueror.
Right.
I'm not a fighter. And Lord Lionel is being a good hand. He's like, sir, like, you know, you carried on the tradition of Jaharis. And he's just like, to what end? He's like, that doesn't make a good song. Like, no one's gonna remember me. Like, he's finally coming to term with the fact that I have been an ineffectual king, and I am setting the kingdom up for a potential civil war.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing at the end of the day, right? I mean, the exchange with Lord Lionel is really fascinating. First of all, Lionel's got an interesting set of kids, right? And you got the one, Larys Strong, who's like giving Alicent the information about the tea, literally spilling the tea about the tea to
there
Alicent.
It is. Well done. Yeah,
thank you. To add on to what Otto had said. So this was the double motivation for her to kind of take this information and then sit down with Criston Cole and question him about the whole thing. So those are those things you got. But then his other son is like clearing people out to try to save Rhaenyra later on in the episodes. So this is going to be very interesting how the Strong family factors into all these things that are happening. And for those of you who read ahead in the books, I'm sure you know how this all happens, but it's fascinating for us watching it for the first time, these storylines, seeing what's going to happen. So I like that they've each got their own kind of separate roles to play in the overall game of Thrones that we're seeing here in House of the Dragon. Also, let's remember, Corlys thinks that his son's going to outgrow being homosexual because there's nothing like betting a woman, you know. So this kind of, he's lost in these antiquated ideas and thoughts. And
antiquated for us. I don't know that they're antiquated for Westeros, but
well, fair enough. But I mean, clearly this is because, I mean, Marjorie does the same thing in Game of Thrones, right? I can't remember who is it that she tries to get with, and Tyrell. Right. It says like, hey, you know, you're rich, let's marry our houses. I understand who you are and you want to be with my brother, but you got to put a baby in me so that we can keep going with this stuff. So certainly there's an understanding in Game of Thrones by usually the women who understand that they can coexist with this idea of having a gay husband or a gay boyfriend or whatever, just for appearances and for keeping things clear or cool in the realm, you know. So,
but also it's just, I mean, and again, everything in Game of Thrones revolves around the Game of Thrones. And so just like with Marjorie or with Rhaenyra, it's the same deal. It's like, look, here's the thing.
Yeah.
You have to put a baby in me because that's the most important thing. And that baby needs to be a boy.
Yeah.
Or at least, you know, for the most part. And as long as that baby is there, nothing else matters. I don't care about the rest of it. And so again, like everything around all of this, I mean, all the machination, it all just revolves around who's going to sit on that throne. And that's what makes Game of Thrones super, super complex on the one side, but super simple on the other side. Like that's what allows us to have all of these different characters and all these different motivations, because ultimately they are all angling for the same thing.
Absolutely. And can I reveal something? The other day I was watching a Parks and Rec episode, and it is that episode where Ben is trying to set up all these things for Leslie to celebrate their anniversary, and she's off trying to run the campaign, and he does everything with Jerry, and he says, well, I guess I beat you at presents, and she says, no, wait a minute, and she surprises him with an Iron Throne in his office. Lindley was watching me as I had the react, because I totally forgot he got an Iron Throne. And I lost my mind, because I tell you what, I would love to have an Iron Throne to sit in every once in a while. So I think I kind of understand why people want to sit in that damn thing. All right, let's take a quick break before we jump into the Alicent storyline right after this.
I figured I'd slow it down a little and make it sound different.
So as we mentioned here with Alicent, we see her at the beginning there talking to Otto dropping the knowledge, as Michael referenced earlier, and I referenced the Larys Strong thing, telling her about the tea. Now we see Alicent see the king return to the castle, and as you guys mentioned, he immediately collapses as soon as he comes out of that carriage, and then she calls Criston to talk to him about Rhaenyra, and she questions him about sleeping with Rhaenyra, and she even has him like sit next to her, which was a really interesting move. And he admits it, says he broke his oath. He asks to be sentenced to death, and for a Clement Queen to be sentenced to death. And this is the final straw. And we see Alicent later on, and we'll talk about the whole wedding, but certainly let's deal with Alicent here in the wedding. We see Alicent show up in the wedding, and she shows up in green, which we find out is the banners that Hightower Castle flies when they're being called to war. And instead of wearing the red that she's worn, that's the Targaryen red, she wears green, and she interrupts the speech of the king as he's about to toast everybody there for the union of her daughter and Laenor. So her showing up in this way, do you think she's playing dirty politics, or is this a woman trying to survive? Because we know that her children might be in danger here, as Otto mentioned. What did you think about how they did the Alicent storyline here, Shannon, as it went along in this throughout this episode?
So she called Ser Cristen in because she wanted to know whether or not Rhaenyra had slept with Daemon.
Right, Daemon. Right, yes.
It was Kristen's. It was Kristen's slip up. Kristen is clearly a very capable fighter.
Right.
You don't necessarily want to trust him with a secret because
he's dumb politically, but he's good in the ring. That's for sure.
He doesn't know. Like he doesn't know.
Yeah.
So the thing, like, it was such a great scene between Otto and Alicent, because you can see, like, she really is heartbroken that her actions have caused her father to be dismissed. Even though Viserys had an idea of what Otto was playing at, it was her actions that ultimately did it.
Right, because she trusted Rhaenyra with the information by asking her about it, and then that ended up backfiring on her. Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, and we talked about it, like, it's split in hairs. Like we talked about it last week. I mean, Rhaenyra didn't technically lie about Daemon, but when she said, "Are you still a maiden?" she just chose not to address that part of the question.
Right.
But you also see the love that Otto really has for his daughter, because he's actually nervous. He's like, I don't, what's going to happen is you can either cling on to Rhaenyra and pray for her mercy, or your kid is going to be the king. Like, it's one of these paths is going to happen. You can't have both.
Yeah.
And then watching, like, you talk about how Alicent, she was married off, very deliberetely, but her responsibility as the queen is just to pump out heirs. I mean, you can see this sort of 1,000-yard stare before Kristen comes in, where she's holding the one baby, the screaming child, who it sure doesn't seem to care. Or maybe she's just so lost in thought about how she's going to approach this. But I mean, I love the fact that statement of wearing that green dress, that's kind of like, you lied to me. We were on the same team. We're not anymore. Now you've illustrated that I have to look out for myself, especially because there's no one here that's, I no longer have an ally, which made that scene with Strong, the younger Lord Strong, all that more interesting. That, when we first meet him and he has the bum leg, and you definitely feel a sympathy for him. But then you can see the way he's playing this. It's like, oh, okay, you're really leaning into this. So
it's a little Richard III stuff. It's a little Richard III stuff, Shannon. Yeah,
that's the angle that he is able to play, and it looks like he's playing it very, very well.
Yeah. Another thing to throw in here too is if we want to connect the Kristen situation, we'll get to the Cristen Cole stuff obviously at the wedding, but Kristen is certainly, Ser Cristen, Ser Cristen is certainly caught up in this idea of honor. Because remember, even in the pitch to Rhaenyra on the boat, he's saying, I violated my honor. I soiled my white cloak or whatever. And by marrying you, then maybe I can turn that around or not feel so terrible about myself. And certainly now hear him admitting and blurting it out, Michael, is certainly something to watch for a guy who clearly does not understand the political machinations of court and is caught up in these ideas of nobility in a place that does not deal well with people who are caught up with ideas of nobility, for sure. What do you think about this whole thing with Alicent, and then also the Kristen stuff with Alicent as well?
Well, I mean, first I'll just say about Ser Cristen, like, I don't know that he's dumb as much as he's not interested in the politics or the game. He is an honorable guy. He's a sweet guy. Like, he fell in love. No, and look, I'm not saying he is correct. He's clearly going to Rhaenyra and saying, hey, wouldn't it be great if we just went off and lived our lives together because we love each other and that's great, is like, yeah, like in any other rom-com, that's the guy you want to meet.
Yeah, you're right.
When everyone else is playing this Game of Thrones, it's not going to happen. And then I do feel a little bit bad for him. I mean, he's not wrong. Like, he looks at Rhaenyra, he's like, so basically you want me to be your whore. Like, she's so like, hey, this is going to be so great. Like, I'm going to get married and I'm going to be queen and you can be my side piece. Like, it's a shitty offer. So I get why he's torn up about it. And even with Alicent, like, he's not thinking ahead towards how does this affect Rhaenyra to affect this and this and this. He literally is caught in a moment where he thinks he's being called out. Like, Alicent is being so, like, talking around it. She's like, I know that this happened and there's these rumors and I just need to know if it was real. And he thinks he's been called into the principal's office and the principal is like, did you cheat? And he's an honorable guy, so he's going to be like, yeah, I did. It was me. And Alicent's totally blindsided by it. So I do think it's less that he's dumb. Like, he's not like an idiot. He just has completely different motivations than every other person in this show right now because he doesn't give a shit about the crown. Now, with Alicent, I think I said this a few weeks ago about Rhaenyra, which is really interesting, is in Game of Thrones, most of the women in Game of Thrones find their power through different means. Like, whether that, like, Sansa's entire journey in Game of Thrones is thinking that she's going to be this princess that falls in love with a prince, and then realizing what political power she has and how to wield it. And with Alicent, that's what we've seen. In last week's episode, they went out of their way to show what Alicent's life was, which is, I'm holding my baby, I'm laying there while the king has sex with me, and I bathe him. Like, and Rhaenyra even says to her early on, and she's like, oh, what a life to just like be there to pop out airs, and that's all that matters. That's all the power you have. That's all that your existence is. And then apologizes for saying it because that's all that Alicent does. But that's all Alicent has done. Like, Otto is the one that put her with the king. Otto's the one that told her what to do, and she was just fulfilling her obligation. And this week, what you saw is someone finally realized that they could play this game too, just in a different way. And so as soon as that happens and she starts questioning Ser Criston, gets an answer that was not the answer she expected, and then chooses to interrupt the king, chooses to dress in Fiona's Shrek dress and come into that wedding. And she's like, I am now in the game. I'm in the game on behalf of my son. I'm in the game on behalf of my house, and she's drawing a line in the sand. And I think it's going to be really interesting because we're going to get this time jump of like 10 years in the next week. And so that's 10 years of someone who has chosen to play the game. And once they play, we've seen who her dad is. And I think where she's going to be is really, really interesting. And so now watching her and Rhaenyra, who used to be friends and then have all of this baggage in these first 5 episodes, see where the two of them are as they are both like playing back and forth against each other. It's going to be really, really fascinating.
Yeah, Emily Carey does a fantastic. I wasn't 100% on board with Emily Carey after the first couple episodes, but certainly the last 3 episodes, I've gotten really to enjoy her playing this role. And certainly in this episode, we see her come into her power. We see her come into the strength, as you mentioned, the Shrek dress, but also her talking to her father's older brother, right? Who tells him Old Town is with you. She is in essence, by wearing that green dress, not only is she in defiance of the king subtly, because I'm sure 3/4 of the people in the room didn't understand what that meant, but she's also telling everybody, you got to pick a side. Hey, this seasick, vomiting blood guy, or me, who's young and have the airs and have where are you going to go with the strength? And I think that's a great power move here. If you're going to join the game and boom, drop a huge hammer right in the middle of the table.
And even if you didn't know the specifics, like whether you're watching the TV show and you didn't know the specifics or you didn't pick up on what the green dress was, or if you're at that wedding in Westeros and you didn't pick up anything. Yeah. She looked like a little girl for 4 episodes.
Yeah, right.
And she walked into that room and she looked like a queen.
And that's why they put really well direction, Mike. They had her come out of the darkness, which was great. It was almost like a transformation, which I thought was great as well, Mike. That's an excellent point. Yeah. And we see her do that. And so it's been great to watch the progression of her into this point. And sadly, that's the last we'll see of Emily Carey in this role. So it's a hell of a way to go out for sure.
She went out with a bang.
She did for sure. Yeah, and we'll see how that all plays out because, as you said, she's got to defend her kids. That's for sure. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll jump into another storyline. Or unless you got something else to say, Shannon, before we jump up. Are you good?
No, I was thinking Ser Joffrey went out with a bang too.
Oh boy.
Ah.
Oh. Ooh. Ooh.
You got another Ser Joffrey to worry about right after this.
Sometimes I think you're just making things up as you go.
Oh.
That is from, well, I mean, it's from the other series.
Oh, fair enough. I don't want to jump into the wedding just yet. Let's deal with Daemon, which will connect us to the wedding a little bit as well. Daemon at the beginning of the episode here, Mike. Look, I kind of liked his wife. She seemed pretty cool. She seemed pretty badass. I didn't see the bronze bitch that he was talking about, and she knew all the stuff he's been saying. She made the sheep references, all the stuff in the veil here. But sadly, she underestimated the evilness of Daemon in that situation. And Daemon, messing with the horse, ended up shooting the horse kind of on top of her and paralyzing her, and then took a rock and crushed her skull. And then later, bold, almost as defiantly as Alicent walked into that wedding, he walks into struts into the wedding, and the king and his weaknesses we've talked about last week, his love for his fucking family, has a chair pulled aside for him, and then we have this challenge from the Lord there of the Vale, who has said, like, hey, we know what you did, you're going to answer for it. And he's like, oh, really? Well, I've been waiting to talk to you too, because I need to get runestone. That's what I'm deserved here because of my wife sadly dying. And then him and Laena have a flirtatious situation going on. And for those of you who read the books, you know what happens with them. But what an interesting game he's playing on the side here, Daemon, and Matt Smith's performance. So, Mike, talk to me about how you think this whole stuff with Daemon went down in this episode.
Well, so I'm purposely I didn't read these, or I didn't read this stuff, and I'm purposely not kind of reading ahead because I'm kind of enjoying, like with Game of Thrones, up through the first 3 books, I knew what was happening, and so I kind of got to watch it as that person who knew what was coming. So I'm kind of enjoying being in the dark on all this, but I did listen to the behind the episodes thing. So I guess in the book, they don't make it clear that Daemon is the one who killed her. Like they make it clear that she died on her horse and that it was kind of weird because she was so good on her horse, but they never say it. So here they've made the choice to be pretty explicit and say that's what it is. And they did say, interestingly, that they also made the choice that they're like, all we ever hear about this character is what Daemon said about her. So we hear that she's this bronze bitch and you'd rather fuck a sheep and blah, blah, blah. But they were like, and I thought it was a great choice to go, look, that's from Daemon's perspective and he's a dick. So she actually is this really kind of awesome, cool, capable person. Like they introduce her in this really great way that you're like, oh, this is a cool character. Like I really kind of like her. Like she knows what she's about. She stands up to Daemon. She's really confident. And then to just see her go down right away, like it's just so heartbreaking and rough. You're like, oh, that is like, it's the first time, even with Daemon taking Rhaenyra into the brothel last week, this is the first time that I was like, yeah, you're bad. Like everything else at this point, I'm like, all right, I'm not saying he's a good guy, but like they played him in a really like you're clearly working for your own ends. Yeah. But I could see you as a character kind of, you could go this way, you could go this way. But like what he did there, I was like, I mean, that's rough stuff. And then just the cold-hearted way that he was like, yeah, so sad she's died. So when can I pick up my shit? Because it's mine now.
When can I get the
oh God. Like I was cringing on my couch all by myself. I was like, that's some bullshit. That is some bullshit. And then like, I just love this dude, like goes and flirts with, is it Lady Laena? Is that her? Yeah, like flirts with her and then goes and gets with Rhaenyra again and on the dance floor at her wedding. Yeah. And you're just like, man, this guy doesn't give a shit. Like he is just like, I don't know. I'm fascinated to see where they go with him, and I'm fascinated to see what happens. And he's like the wild card to me because, I mean, obviously he wants what everybody else wants. Like everybody wants that throne, but like Rhaenyra wants it for herself. Alicent wants it for her kid. Daemon wants it, but how he wants to get there and how he's going to choose to do it, like he's just such a wild card to me. And everything he did in this episode just made him even more so.
It's very curious to see. They didn't show Daemon in the episode 6 preview. So how much has he aged? They're going to put wrinkles on him? Are they going to have him balding? Like, what's this Daemon going to look like when we see him 10 years from now? So that's going to be fascinating. Shannon, Michael brought it back to the point I didn't mention. Yeah, the stuff with him and Rhaenyra on the dance floor. That's certainly an interesting. And Rhaenyra, in a way, calling out his impotence by saying, well, then come on, take on the King's Guard. Come get me. Come show that penis of yours and take care of business and make me your wife and take me to Runestone. And let's do all of this. And of course, he wilts because he always wilts because he has impotence around all his other shit. He's impotent to really go after what he wants here. So how do you think they handled Daemon here throughout this episode? What do you think about the actions he took? And, of course, the stuff with Laena and Rhaenyra at the wedding.
Well, I mean, Matt Smith is such a dynamic performer.
Yeah.
And the thing that you get from Daemon is just this unpredictable nature. Like, obviously, he shows up in the Vale with a big hood over because, Targaryens have very distinct hair. So it's like, well, it seems like he went there to kill her. But the happenstance of him kind of running across her as she's going on a hunt, where as he approaches, and then she starts hurling insults at him.
I think he knew she was going to be there. I think he knew she was going to be there. I don't think that was an accident that he was there waiting for her at that valley where no one can see what's happening.
I think my thing was like, did he go there to kill her, or did he? Why did he go? Was it specifically to kill her? Because it didn't seem like he was gonna do it. Like after she fell on the horse, like I think he was content just to let her die. He's just like, okay, I'm stepping on your arm. You can't feel anything. You're paralyzed from the neck down. And then when she says, "I knew you couldn't finish," she's like, "All right, grabbing a rock." So I wonder if that was the intention the whole time. Was it to murder her, or was there some other purpose? Because again, just thinking about the unpredictable nature of what he does, like, did he have this planned out? I mean, he certainly didn't want to be recognized, but again, him showing up at the wedding and it just, really highlighting the weakness of Viserys. Because the last time we saw them together, he was like, "Do not come back." Like,
he was kicking him on the ground.
You're out of here.
Yeah.
And the fact that I think that's a Targaryen male trait of this line, the wilting right away.
Yeah.
The fact that Viserys, instead of saying, "Hey, guards, get him out of here," nope, let's give him a chair at the table, which is just insane. And then to watch, how Rhaenyra goes at him, where she's just like, "Is this what you want? Let's, quit singing and start bringing."
Go through the King's Guard. Let's go. Yeah.
Yeah. And more than likely, could he cut through the King's Guard? Probably. Like he's an incredible fighter. But yeah, I mean, it's just, he's a fascinating character to watch. And then to see him to be like, okay, what is my next move?
Right.
Let me go after the other Valerian kid.
Yeah,
maybe,
right.
But like the thing that's crazy about, like, think about, like, we're 5 episodes into the series. He stole an egg and declared himself king and said that one woman was from the brothel was gonna be his bride.
Yeah.
And then she was like, "Bitch, you told me I was never gonna have to carry a baby." Then he was like, "All right, well, I'm gonna go fight in this war and make a name for myself and be the one that takes care of this crab guy." And then he was like, "No, now I'm going to take Rhaenyra out to the brothels and have sex with her." Okay, that didn't work out. I'm just going to say, "Why don't you let me marry her?" That didn't work out. Like, he's had like 12 plans.
Yeah.
And so, and then he's like, "All right, now I'm going to kill my wife so that I'm on the market." But it's just like, it really just seems like he's just flailing around. Like, it just seems like he's not, he's all, like, in the moment. Like, he's just gonna go with whatever is happening in the moment and say, "Okay, well, this is what I'm gonna do now." But there's no consistency to what he does at all.
There's a sociopathy to what he's doing, right? He just seems to always have this feeling that it's going to work out, that he's going to figure it out, and he's willing to sacrifice anybody or anything in order to be in a position to be able to get to where he's going. I mean, and clearly he knows his brother is a weak ass. The fact that he could walk in that way into the wedding and he knew his brother wasn't going to do anything to him. The fact that he could go up to Rhaenyra in front of everybody and start talking to her and Targaryen and start, like, speaking about, like, is this what you really want? He's going to bore you, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, "Well, come on, let's do it." And all of that. So you see him, he's willing to be bold with the people he knows he can get away being bold with. But with the people actually challenge him, he wilts. And so we'll see what happens if there's a Criston Cole Daemon fight coming down the road, or one of the strong kids coming after him. We'll see how this all plays out with him. But Matt Smith is doing an excellent job. I think he did go there to kill Lady Rhea. I think he was there on purpose in that area, wearing the hood so no one would know it was him. And you're right. He probably wasn't going to like bash her skull in until she called him out. And so he did the job. But Gerald Royce is an interesting character in the Sir Gerald Royce who confronts him at the wedding. I think that's the same guy at the beginning who she blows off for the ride. And he goes, yeah, fortune goes with you then. So he doesn't seem like that into her or that cool with her, so that later when he's like going, you mess with my cousin and blah blah blah. So I find that to be interesting. So I wonder how that's all going to play itself out, because certainly Gerald Royce backs down in a bit of shock that Daemon has the gall to want to have Runestone as well. So that's going to be interesting how Gerald Royce's role is going to be in all this. And remember, he was interrupted by by Lord Corlys and Rhaenys and the whole family arriving there when he was pleading his case to the king after the death of Lady Rhea. So interesting how they're playing Gerald Royce in this as well. And I wonder how that's going to come into play down the road with this whole thing. All right, let's take a quick break and we'll jump into the wedding and get into it right after this.
Do, do, do,
Oh my God. Wow. All right. Well, we've mentioned a lot of things that happened in the wedding, but certainly the big thing that happens in the wedding is Sir Joffrey kind of talking to Kristen in a way, and we're seeing the dance, or talking to Kristen about the situations that they're in, and we see the dance between Rhaenyra there and Laenor, and what that kind of implies. And I like their chemistry, by the way. I think the two actors were doing a really nice job with that as well. And then we see Joffrey go up to Kristen and kind of mention, hey, I'm also this hand of the, protector, and we should protect our two respective people and protect their secrets. So that's best for everybody. So what do you think happened here, Shannon? Do you think this was all about Kristen having his manhood threatened, and we see him later, he's going to kill himself afterwards because there's supposed to be 7 days of celebration and a tournament and all that, but the killing of Joffrey, which he does in a bloodthirsty way, ends up moving the nuptials up to that night. My man Laenor is not even done crying about Joffrey yet, and he's got to commit himself to Rhaenyra. And then we see Alicent stop Kristen from killing himself. So clearly he is now going to be in Alicent's camp, and we see the blood still on the ground there, and Viserys himself coughed up blood. So talk to me about this whole wedding, but what do you think Kristen Cole's motivation was here with the situation with Jon?
Well, I mean, I think there's definitely the offense that this guy is basically there's a bit of blackmail, like, hey, we're going to keep your secret, you keep our secret.
Yeah.
And so I think as a man of honor, like, he's already sullied his cloak. Yeah. I think he does not want anyone having anything over him, but I also think he still really, despite the fact that he was rejected, he still really loves Rhaenyra.
Yeah.
And so he's like, all right, this guy clearly knows something. How? I don't know, because I'm an uncomplicated dude and I can't connect the dots here. So I think the thought is, I'm going to beat this guy to a bloody pulp because there's going to be a degree of satisfaction there. But now that he's dead, I'm not stopping until he is dead.
Yeah.
I'm going to go kill myself. This secret, she's okay. So I do think there is that genuine puppy love that he has for Rhaenyra.
Right.
And I think that I would love to have seen what was the spark, because
I think it's
Joffrey walked away.
But do you think it's the fact that Joffrey is gay and he feels like, oh, how's a gay guy going to tell me what's up, and then boom, destroys him?
No, I don't think he has any idea about that. No. I think he
basically infers, we both are in love with the people we're protecting, so let's keep their secrets.
But I don't think there's any. No, I don't think it's that at all.
Really, you don't think a straight dude would be offended at that time by a gay guy thinking he's on the same level as him?
No, not at all.
I don't think there's anything. I'm not saying that like that is not a thing that could exist. Right. Nothing in what they laid out here.
So why did he
sets us up?
Why did he kill him? Beat him to a pulp with such ferocity?
Well, I think it's to protect Rhaenyra.
From what?
Because if
she told him on the ship, I know he's gay. We're cool. You can be my whore.
Well, she made Kristen knows the secret. And this dude knows the secret. Like, he's like, if we can take 2 people off the board who know this secret, then again, she's okay. But also, I do think,
you know, he did it from a noble place.
Okay. Well, I mean, partially.
I think everything. I mean, it's like this was. I think that everything that Ser Criston does, the character that they have set up in this series, everything he does is from a noble place. It might not be the smartest place. It might not be the most politically expedient, but everything he's doing is from a place of nobility or honor, as best as he knows how, as someone who has done something that is super dishonorable.
Okay. Shannon, what were you going to finish saying?
No, I mean, that's the extent of it. Is I do think he snapped. I think that definitely happened. Because if, you know, you could take that step back and be like, all right, is this the noble thing to do? Maybe. But it's...
I just don't think I'm not in the same camp with you guys on him, because he did it at her wedding. He did it in a public place. He didn't like take him out somewhere or kind of lure him out to another place and then stab him away from everybody else. He did it right there in public. That's an infant thing. That's an infantile thing to do. I'm mad because I don't get what I want, so I'm going to beat the shit out of the person who knows about it, and I'm going to unleash my fury about the situation on this dude.
I think there's an element.
We didn't see what you know kind of spurred the whole thing on, because
So
Joffrey said what he said. No, I get that. Joffrey said what he said. Joffrey left. They were physically in 2 different places. They had to come back together. So, to me, something had to have transpired that we as an audience didn't see. Because I don't think that as a filmmaker, I don't know why you would not. Why you would do it that way, unless we're going to find out later down the road what actually transpired for him to attack.
Right, because he survived, and certainly Laenor is going to be pissed off that he killed Joffrey, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so, sorry, Mike, what were you going to say?
No, I mean, like, I don't think that you're completely wrong. You can be noble and still do something that's not noble. He did it last week. He is a guy that took an oath, and then he had sex with Rhaenyra. So you can have a character motivation that is, I am this type of person, and you can still falter. So I think, as far as an infantile reaction, I don't agree with Shannon. I don't think there's some missing moment that some big reveal that needs to be placed here. I think that this dude totally did the most dishonorable thing possible. And then said, the way that I can make this honorable, the way I can make this okay is I'm going to go off with this woman. And this is true love. Like, it was true love. So it's not the worst thing in the world because we love each other. And she's like, no, I want you to be my whore. And so he's like struggling. He has feelings for Rhaenyra. He does love her. And he thinks, probably because he just lost his virginity with her. And he has this secret that he just told the queen. And he says to the queen, just go ahead and kill me. Like, he's like dead man walking. Like, he's sure he's going to die anyway. So then I do think what happens is, I think when Joffrey shows up and it's like, hey, buddy, you've got a secret and I've got a secret, but as long as we keep each other's secrets, everybody's happy and nobody has to get hurt. So, hey, Joffrey's working under this assumption that this guy is happy to be Rhaenyra's side piece the same way that Joffrey is happy to be Laenor's side piece. And he's like, let's just make sure we understand each other. He doesn't know that that Ser Criston actually is like, no, I was hoping that this was true love and we were going to run away. So I think all of those things together, people are finding out left and right. Everybody seems to know that I dishonored myself. All Rhaenyra wants is for me to be a whore like this guy is Laenor's whore. I don't want that. I thought there was something special. I think all of it conspired to make him fucking snap and beat the shit out of the dude. Like, I don't think there's some big mystery here. Like, we just saw this dude's entire life crash down around him in this episode. So I think he already is sure that he's going to get killed. And I do think that Shannon might be right that there is probably some level of, maybe I'm going to kill this guy so that he doesn't do anything to Rhaenyra, because he basically was trying to blackmail the queen a little bit. So I think he already thinks he's going to die. He's like, I'm super upset. I'm super pissed off. So to your point, John, that's why I don't think he does something in secret. I don't think this is a planned, like, I'm going to do one last noble moment. I think he actually does snap in the moment, beats the fucking bloody pulp out of the guy's face, and then goes off to go kill himself because he knows he's going to get killed anyway. He just did something in the most public way possible. Yeah. And I am fascinated to know what Alicent says to him when she shows up. Like, because what this guy is, I think, and maybe I'm wrong, and we'll find out next week. And John, you'll be like, "Oh, I was right. He wasn't as noble as you two thought." But I think this is a guy who actually does have some level of nobility to him. He thinks he's dishonored himself. He thinks he's dishonored his family. He's going to kill himself. That's clearly what he's about to do. What Alicent says to him that keeps him around for presumably the next 10 years, and we're going to find out where he's at. Does he just stay around? Is he so whipped by Rhaenyra that he ends up just being her whore? Like, where does he go? I don't know. And what does that do to this guy that was, I think, kind of a noble romantic that was not prepared for the bullshit that Westeros was going to throw at him?
I think he's an immature guy emotionally immature guy who had sex one time out of love and thinks he can take a queen away from her crown, or a future queen away from her crown. This guy came up to him, brought this. And by the way, Joffrey does bear a lot of blame here. Joffrey should have shut the fuck up,
100%,
stayed on the sideline and let it all play out. Joffrey coming up to him and being like, you know what, we homies, we doing the same thing. To me, that was the dumbest move. It didn't merit him getting beat up, obviously, to death, but it was a dumb move. He didn't know, as you said, Michael, he didn't know what Kristen was going through mentally, and certainly the snap happened. Maybe there is a missing moment, maybe there isn't. We'll see if I know. But I don't see him as noble as you guys see him.
But
I think he's.
But I agree with everything you just said.
Yeah, but I think he's misguided with his nobilities. I think he covers his actions, and he thinks, as you said, Michael, earlier, really well in the beginning of this episode, he thinks he's acting from a noble place, but it's actually his own personal feelings that are getting mixed up, and he's rationalizing his behavior, thinking he's coming from a noble place when he really isn't.
I think we're actually saying the same thing here. Because I don't look, if he was truly a noble, honorable guy, he wouldn't have had sex with Rhaenyra, and he probably wouldn't have killed somebody at a wedding.
Right. So and I surrendered it to Queen Alicent the second she asked 2 questions, right?
No, I think he would do that. I think when you're called out and you're an honorable person, you're just going to tell the truth. I think a part of him wanted to just be honest, and then he was honest in that moment.
You're betraying Rhaenyra's confidence. The fact that you guys had sex, you're betraying that to the queen? I don't think that's
you dishonored yourself, and the only and you come clean. That's an honorable thing. But what I do agree with is that I think that his ideas of honor and nobility are a little misguided and immature in this world of Game of Thrones, where everyone else is playing this game like everyone else is sleeping with each other and angling for the throne and doing this and doing that, whatever. And he comes into this situation he is a little bit immature. He is a little bit naive. He is a little bit. Anyone's going to go to the future queen and say, "Hey, you want to go sail around the world?" There's an immaturity. He can still be, he aspires to be a noble and honorable person. Yeah. And most of his motivation of what he's trying to do can come from a desperate attempt to try and regain some semblance of that honor and nobility. But in the end result, because he is a bit misguided, it just doesn't go his way.
And I would love to get you guys' thoughts on this. How noble is he if Alicent has manipulated him to be on his side because of his anger of being rejected by Rhaenyra?
That's what we're going to find out. We're going to find that out next week.
Right. So if he's on Queen Alicent's side, because clearly she saves his life in that moment. But clearly, if we're jumping 10 years, she clearly saves his life for 10 years, because I'm sure Rhaenyra wanted, through Laenor's encouragement, would have possibly put Kristen Cole to the sword. So that
there are so many questions. I don't know how Laenor spends 10 years with Ser Criston hanging around when Ser Criston killed his there's going to be, that's where it's going to be how whatever Alicent says to Ser Criston, whatever Ser Criston and Rhaenyra's relationship is, whatever Rhaenyra and Laenor's relationship is, when you watch the coming attractions for next week, there are clearly some babies that don't look like they're Laenor's it's pretty clear what's going on. And so why that has been allowed to go on for a decade and what's going on is going to be absolutely fascinating.
Right. And we see Alicent say, to have that happen 3 times, once is okay, but 3 times is an insult, clearly implying, that Laenor's gay, she's straight. How could she possibly do that? So Alicent has her own kind of fucked up nobility ideas that are convenient when they fit what she wants. So as you said, Mike, everyone has their own ideas of nobility, and it works in their selfish way as they see fit. Shannon, any final words on this wedding? Anything we missed that you want to hit on or touch on?
Yeah, we missed Jason Lannister in one of the funnier moments of the
What a
episode.
Jason.
Where he comes up, his beard does look better, but he still looks like a ragamuffin.
He's a doof.
But when he comes up and he's just basically like, "Hey, congratulations," and Rhaenyra says, "Yep, there was clearly no better match." And that, like, I don't know the actor's name, but that moment of that slight tick that he has was like brilliant. And there's another shot during the feast where it cuts over to him and he does another. Just really, really funny.
Well, there's more of that exchange too, because the king, he asks for where the queen is. The king says she's getting ready. He's like, ain't that the thing? That's why women can't can't fight or whatever, because we'd be waiting for them on the battlefield. Women be shopping. It's exactly what he did.
And then Rhaenyra just straight up is like, always a pleasure.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure to see you. I did think, I think some people said when you were talking about how he didn't really feel like a Lannister, in the other episode, whatever it was, he showed up 2 or 3 or 4 or 2, whenever it was. Some people in the comments pointed out, which I thought was really interesting, is that the Lannisters didn't really rise to the prominence that we know them as until they really sided with Robert in the war, in the history of Westeros, that it was really Tywin Lannister that kind of clawed the Lannisters up to the level of standing that they are in Game of Thrones. And so it actually makes sense for him to not feel the way that we feel about the way that Tywin and Tyrion and Jaime and Cersei carry themselves at the beginning of Game of Thrones, which I thought was interesting.
I mean, again, I haven't read the book, so I mean, the people that are commenting, have more information. But they're still the wardens of the West. They're still the lords of Casterly Rock. So it just, I don't know. It still bumps me. It bumps me less in this episode because he cleaned up that beard. Yeah.
So it's really just the beard that you had the issue with.
It's the facial hair. It has to be well manicured.
All right, let's take a quick break and we'll hit a couple of these Easter eggs and then we'll get on out of here right after this.
Yeah, I got nothing.
Okay. All right, real quick, we should hit a couple of these things because people are going to give us shit that we didn't mention it, and rightfully so. I know how Game of Thrones fans are, but we see Rhaenys Targaryen riding her dragon Meleys, known, and I hope I'm saying that right, or Meleys, nicknamed the Red Queen. That's the first new dragon we've seen in a bit. We've seen Rhaenyra's Syrax, Daemon's Caraxes, and Laenor's Sea Smoke. So this is the first dragon that we see for Rhaenys. So her riding into the wedding, that's pretty awesome. Of course, we see Laena mess around with being very flirtatious and holding her own, but still obsessed with the dragon riding thing with Daemon. That's pretty awesome. And we get a new Maester that's introduced here because Maester Mellis is still caught up in the maggots and all of that. But there's a new Maester, Orwyll, who actually appears later in the books, in the story rather, in the book. But he is appearing now, and he's proposing new herbicides or new, new potions that he can use here to help the king. And we do see the king 10 years later, as you said, Shannon. Clearly, he's still around. He's still alive. Something has happened to him to keep him in that situation here.
He goes to the Emperor Palpatine pharmacy.
Yeah, he looks like Lopan in Big Trouble in Little China.
With the nails. I want him to have the nails. So, so what do you guys think about all of this, and what role is Harwin Strong going to play in all of this? Because he clearly was, his father indicated, hey man, go clear things up, and he tore everybody apart, punching people out because Rhaenyra had been knocked down, and he grabs Rhaenyra and takes her out of there. So, what do you think about all these Easter eggs, gentlemen? What stood out to you? What do you want to discuss?
Well, I mean, he was dancing with Rhaenyra when Daemon came up and interrupted them, and I don't get a romantic vibe from him at all. But when Lionel basically gives him, he basically takes the dog off the leash and all right, go get him. Yeah. Those two sons are fascinating characters because they both seem to be a little duplicitous, even though the guy with I can't remember his name, the guy with the leg, he's a little better at concealing it, whereas the other one is he's the captain of the football team who is just all right, let me go save the princess here.
Laris Strong is who you're talking about. And
Laris.
clearly she's going to need a protector or a quote unquote protector because Kristen Cole is no longer going to be there to protect her. So Harwin Strong may take that position. And we do see Lionel Strong older as well in the 10-year jump. And I think that's a new actor that steps in.
I think it's the same guy.
Is it the same guy? Oh, wow.
Because I was looking at his hair this time. I'm like, all right, is that a piece? Because we've seen the chrome dome on top.
I just think people are going to make fun of the makeup on Viserys. I just have a feeling because it does not look good in those trailers. So I got a feeling it's not going to look good. Mike, anything you want to say on any of the Easter eggs that were brought up here?
I think everyone's going to be super happy looking at ancient Viserys because, like, this man is just holding on. Like, I don't care what the makeup looks like. Like, I am in. Like I think we're going to get a lot of memes next week about what he looks like. I think Lopan from Big Trouble in Little China. I think when Jafar is dressed up like an old man in the prison when Aladdin meets him. Like, there are so... Like, there's like who does Viserys look like this week? And will he die? Or is he making it to episode 10? Like you're gonna be like, everyone else has died, and King Viserys is like, I was a shitty king, but I'm here, God. Like, it's like, who knows what's gonna happen? No, I don't have an opinion on the Easter eggs, just because, like I said, like it's kind of a fun position to be in, as opposed to watching like a Marvel thing or a Star Wars thing. Like, it's all news to me. Like, you're like, sounds cool. I didn't know. So it's kind of fun to know that some of these characters that are popping up, that there's more for them. I definitely clocked that moment with the Maester where I was like, well, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. This younger guy clearly is smarter. So it's great to know that it's going to go. But it's kind of fun when you're rounding out your geek viewing, particularly right now when we have so much to watch, that on some things I'm ahead of the curve, and on some things it's fun to be behind the curve.
Right. I mean, I'm throwing in Gary Oldman as Dracula. Gary Oldman as Dracula.
Oh, good one. That's a good one.
Look like that. There's a great film back in 1991 with John Candy called Delirious, where he's a soap opera writer.
First of all, that is not a great film, but it is a film.
Okay, fair enough. What I'm getting at is, you're right, it's not a great film. But I remember the Dylan Baker character is how I see Viserys. You know how throughout the movie he is constantly looking worse and worse every time he runs into John Candy, and you see the growth in his neck, and he's balding, and he's losing his hair. That's what I'm seeing with Viserys every time I see him. He's worse and worse.
Do you remember that horrible movie Nothing But Trouble? Like Dan Aykroyd. And,
is the judge? Yes.
And Dan Aykroyd wears all these prosthetics as some old judge, and I'm like, yep, that's King Viserys right there.
Also a great movie, Nothing But Trouble. No, it really wasn't. It was a terrible movie. All right, let's get on out of here. Thank you all so much for watching this spoiler review episode of episode 5 of House of the Dragon. We appreciate it. Madly, Shannon, what do we have to tell?
Yeah, I'd like to follow us on social media. On Twitter, it's @geek_buddies. On Instagram, at @the_geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's @Shannon_McClung. On Instagram, it's Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you would like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is @MKToon. If you would like to follow Mr. Rocha, it is @TheRochaSays.
Mikey?
Listen, if you like House of the Dragon, if you like She-Hulk, if you like Andor, if you like all these things, well, buckle up, because we're going to be talking about a lot of it. And here's what you guys can do to help us not absolutely die while we're doing it. Hit Rocha's like button below. He likes it when he gets his like button hit. Subscribe to his Outlaw Nation page and check out all the amazing content. Leave your comments below. What did we get right? What did we get wrong? What should we know if we didn't read the books? What should we not know if we didn't read the books? Let us know all your thoughts on this episode and what you think is going to be coming up next. If you're listening to this on podcast form, definitely leave us some stars, leave us some comments, helps us go up in the rankings. And as always, the best thing that you can do is retweet this video, post it to your socials, and tell your friends to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
Absolutely. And big shout out to Carbon Health. Thank you so much for still powering and sponsoring us here on the Outlaw Nation and the Geek Buddies particularly. They have 110 plus locations nationwide, 80 locations in California alone. Go to carbonhealth.com and go see where you can go get checked out today if you got any healthcare questions, concerns, or needs. They've got urgent care at all of their locations. And certainly urgent care is something that does come up for people in their lives. And so knowing that a Carbon Health facility is right around the corner or close to you, go to them and get taken care of them. They've got primary care in California as well. Testing all over the place for COVID. It is still a thing, clearly, as I got it for 2 weeks. They believe in being an active partner and supporting you in your efforts to feel better and to live healthier. And they support our community because they like supporting positive, uplifting communities, talking about things that we can all get together and enjoy, like House of the Dragon. All right, y'all take care of yourselves. Be well, and we'll talk to you next time with another brand new spoiler review of House of the Dragon here on the
Geek
Buddies!